This really challenged them.
That's the first problem.
Didn't work.
Second problem is Lek is not convinced they're going to be able to bend it.
Ton to the rescue.
So here's Wira and his assistant, and these are the canvas guys, and they're starting off by putting up a plastic sheet which they're going to use as a template just to make sure everything fits. So here you can see the upholstery guys have set up shop outside our apartment, which we've rented for a few days. Since we're working on diesel tanks, it made sense to rent this out to give them some space to lay out the material. This is their second day and they're really cracking along. I have to say, of all the jobs we're doing at the moment, including seacocks and fuel tanks, this is the one that has me on tenterhooks the most. The design is very difficult to work around with the Dodger, with the sharp short corner and the combing with the longer corner, and so you know, obviously I'm concerned that we're going to be able to get the canvas around those corners and make it look good. So what they're doing is they're putting it together and we're just going to offer it up and see how it sits. So Wira is now putting all the pieces together, but not the track. So that's just one piece that we can hold up against the Dodger. Didn't work. It didn't work. The canvas didn't work.
For so many reasons.
Yes. Well, it's mainly because of this funny shaped curve at the top and the bottom. The guys really struggled to cut it and get it to fit.
Yeah, there are lots of things. Like, I mean, I don't think they were up to the job. I don't think they'd done anything like this before. They were doing it all wrong, but I bit my tongue because we thought we might be able to do it, but we've got a 90-degree angle at the top and we've got a much softer degree at the bottom. So and we want to fill that with plastic. And the only way that that's going to work is with a rigid plastic that holds its shape. And we were trying to do that with far too soft. The strata glass was too soft. We should have got something much thicker.
I think when we designed this, I had in my head that strata glass was more solid. It was like a 1mm acrylic.
Well, it is, but and the one we saw in the catamaran is much thicker than the strata glass we bought. So
there was definitely some confusion there with materials we should be using.
Yeah.
As you say, I think the guys, you know, they've done our cockpit cushions, by the way. The boys you saw just that in that clip, really good. Yeah. They do automotive stuff, so car seats and what have you, and they're very good at that. But as you say, I think this really challenged them, and you could tell that they were getting despondent, and
they were determined to try and make it work, and you know, they had a great attitude, but they've never really done anything as complicated as this. Right, if it was a straightforward bit of canvas work, I think they would have been okay, but I have my reservations about that as well. But because we were trying to do something so difficult, they didn't appreciate that you've got to cut it in such a way that it will bend and give you a shape. But that's kind of by the by, because that thinner strata glass would never have held its shape. But my other big problem was that I remember reading about making canvas years ago because I looked at doing it myself, and I do know that you have to cut out an entire piece of umbrella, and then you have to put the window over that, and there's very detailed stitching and folding you have to do to get it exactly right. And he was just cutting out a border and sticking it round the window, and that's just completely wrong. Completely.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to those guys, as you say, they were determined, but their approach was a bit shoddy, shall we say. You know, we just paid for this strata glass and this umbrella, and it was kind of being thrown around, and kept having to tell them, please don't lie on the concrete floor.
Don't walk on it.
So there we go, lesson learned there. The question is, what do we do next?
Oh yeah.
And we have come up with an alternative solution, and that is to build the front half of the Dodger out of acrylic.
Yes, hard, so the whole thing is hard, which I kind of wanted all the way along, so I'm quite happy about that.
We did want the sort of a hard corner anyway. Yeah. So this is the next stage of finishing the Dodger off, is now we've got to come up with a way of bending acrylic around those tight corners and getting it all to fit.
Ton to the rescue.
Get ready, this morning waiting for a ton and Tui.
Here we are up on our next door neighbour's boat. It's a Rassie without his mast, and it gives us a nice vantage point of our Dodger. And as you can see behind me, we have got rid of that curve, and it's the curve that I never ever liked. I did ask for it to be curved, but I think they curved it too much, but I went with it. Liz didn't mind it, but now you can see they've put on those straight bars again, and it is much better. It really is. Now, one of the reasons for this is that because we've decided to go for perspex around the whole of the front, so there'll be 3 pieces, the 2 corners and then the straight bit. If we put perspex in that straight bit, we want to put a window in. To put a window in, it has to be flat anyway, so that has helped encourage Lek to finally agree to put the straight bits in. So next step is for Ton and Tui to start curving that perspex. Meanwhile, you can see 2 of Lek's guys, and they're putting up the frame for our new solar panels, which we've got to pick up in Pancor, but getting Lek to do all the work now, so when we get to Pancor, we can literally just drop them in place, and they're just sizing them up at the moment. Quite happy to see actually that the overhang at the top isn't as much as I thought it would be. Well, I kind of knew what it would be because I measured it, but it doesn't look that bad. So they'll be hanging at the same distance down to almost to the tow rail on the outside, with a little overhang at the top, and should work nicely actually. Just had Ton and Tui on board, who have been looking at the almost impossible task of getting the perspex to curve around these 2 different curves. Ton, as usual, come up with a solution. He's going to build a template out of ply, and he's going to build it out of layers, so layers of strips of ply that is going to follow each curve, so kind of a tiered effect, and that will give him the template for them to lie the perspex against, to start using the heat gun to sort of bend it and melt it into place. So that's good. Meanwhile, just managed to get the big seacock on finally, and my job this afternoon is going to be trying to thread the new manual bilge hose. I've got 10 meters of it to play with, and it's going to be very interesting to see if it's any easier or more difficult to get the old one out. Now, in theory, on my side, the fact it's new means that it's much more flexible. But it's going to be interesting to see how easy it's going to be to try and thread it up through past that engine underneath all those cables. So let's take a look. So this is Operation Make a Complicated Curve Out of Perspex with Ton and Tui, part 1. As you can see, Ton has got some corrugated plastic, and he's copying the curves of the corner, and he'll do that at kind of each level like so, and then he's going to cut that out of plywood so that it's stronger, make a frame out of that plywood, and then that gives them a frame to bend the perspex around. And there's Tui. It's good to see Tui is f***ing everything up again.
Ton and Tui, the fabulous carpenter boys, are working on the template for our acrylic window. So the difficulty has always been this corner area, because we've got a very sharp, almost 90-degree angle at the top underneath the Dodger, and then a nice rounded angle at the bottom. Very, very difficult. So they are making a complete model of what it will look like in plywood, nice and rigid. They're then sanding it back, and then they're going to be using some plastic to put over the top to make sure they've got that curve exactly right. And only when this model is completely exactly right will we start to look at the acrylic, and then they'll bend it to this template.
Part 16 of our fuel leak issue, and it's an obvious solution, one that we had been thinking about for a little while, discussed it with Ricky, and also in that time a couple of you actually suggested this on one of our videos. We've decided to do away with that crossbar with the 4 bolts on each corner, and we're going to instead put a skin fitting in. Pretty straightforward. Main concern was whether that elbow that we have for it is actually going to be able to turn, because there isn't much clearance between there and there, but we think we can just about do it. So that's going to be the next step. Holes are filled in already, those 4 bolt holes, and then we just have to get the skin fitting in and epoxy it into place.
If the gap is like that, then maybe we put something here, so this comes to here, and then we have a piece here. We're just discussing what we're going to do, because the acrylic sheet we've got only comes in one size. We don't think it's quite big enough, because of the excessive curves, to fit perfectly. It's likely there's going to be a corner at the side that it can't cover. That's the first problem. Second problem is Lek is not convinced they're going to be able to bend it perfectly. So rather than try and do a little bit of a redesign at the side, we're just going to get the boys to go ahead and bend it to the shape that we want it, and just see if that works first. And then after that, we'll see what the next phase will bring.
Well, here's our new T-bar for the fuel connecting pipe. So this was actually the old pipe, which they've cut down, and they've put a couple of sort of hose tails, just machined it. I had to nip into town to find a connector for this part here, because of course it has to be reduced down to a 6mm pipe with a tap on it, and so Lek has just welded that in place, and that is the centre T-bar. And the idea is we're going to have hose at the side which will connect to those elbows to each tank. Well, we finished putting the skin fittings on the diesel tank, which is great. Just attempted to put the last 2 seacocks on and found that I couldn't get them on the skin fittings, so thought I'd get the lads to give it a go, and they couldn't get them on either, and there's clearly an issue with it. It turns out the skin fittings are not the same as the seacocks, which is odd, because we actually have another skin fitting which was the same old seacock, and that did fit, so not quite sure what's going on there, but we've had to order some new seacocks. Sorry, we've had to order some new skin fittings, I should say. Anyway, here we have Tom now, who is using the heat gun, our new heat gun we got today, and it comes with a quite useful attachment. It's got a very wide attachment, like a hairdryer I suppose. And he's just slowly bending this round. Had a bit of a drama earlier. We had Pong over, Ton and to his dad, and they were making a little template just using the blue strips there to try and get a feel for what the curve was going to be like. They were using super glue, and as Pong stuck down with super glue, a little bit jumped up and landed in his eye. So he was running around putting lots of water in his eye, and Tui's just had to take him to the local doctor. Liz reckons Tom's enjoying this, and I think she's probably right. This is the sort of thing he likes doing. It's a challenge for him. So as you see, we promised you that we were going to sort out that fuel issue, and we took on board a few of your comments, and it was an idea that we'd had already, is to do away with that stupid connecting pipe and just put in skin fittings and elbows instead. So that's good, and we had some success with threading that new bilge hose up past the engine. That was a real to get that out.
Hoses and threading.
But we've done that. But most importantly, you can see the second phase, third phase, fourth phase, fifth phase of the Dodger is now underway. So it's very exciting.
You're learning with us. It's an organic experience.
As we say, we make the mistakes and you don't have to.
Yeah. I just wish we didn't do them so often, but yeah.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
There we go. Yeah, it's all happening. Right, okay, so you know the deal. Please do like and share this video if you appreciate it. Give us a nice thumbs up. And head on over to followtheboat.com/thanks if you fancy supporting our videos so that we can put more stuff out like this for you.
In the meantime, peace and fair winds.